I'm primarily going to focus on coming out to family or friends, specifically because the coming out in the workplace is very difficult. I have not had any success, and also I've always had, not at every job, but at some jobs where I have been more liberal, I've gotten backlash. So I pretty much never really plan on coming out at work. I'm either going to be employed as a female, take some time off, start a new job somewhere while I'll be employed as male. I just find that the easiest because then you don't have to worry about people misgendering you and then asking too many personal questions. So yeah, my new plan eventually down the line, if I was to fully transition, would to be start my new job stealth. Alright, so there are numerous ways to come out to people. One of the more harder versions is face-to-face. And that could be difficult because you have to sit down with that person and you have to work up the nerve to then tell them that, and that's kind of, I always find that hard. When I was trying to talk to my mom just about wanting top surgery, I had a list written out of everything that I wanted to make sure I covered. So suggestions for you is that you have a checklist, a physical checklist that you can look at, and you can even preface that, be like, hey, there's some things I want to tell you, but there's things I want to make sure I don't miss. I want to make sure, that I get everything out so I feel better about this. And your family should be receptive to that. Another thing I heard of from a fellow queer person here in Washington is they're actually going to bring one of their friends with them to come out to their family. And I find that pretty genius because the friend can kind of help you there. They'll be moral support. They can be there because they're keeping you grounded. And they can also be there to make sure that you say everything you need. If you feel like you might have more hostile parents, I suggest doing that. Because if it does go south, you could, and they say stuff like, you need to pack up, you need to leave. Your friend would be there to then help you get more things. Because I've heard horror stories where people basically only had like whatever duffel bag they had and whatever they could fit, and that's all they could grab from the house, and that was it. So yeah, not to talk about the negative things, but you also need to consider the negative things. Another way you can come out is in a letter, and I find the letter to be the best because I need to organize things. In a letter, you can make sure everything is organized. You can make sure you have everything you want to say in that letter. And then at that point, you can kind of make sure that you're giving it to your family at a good time. Like specifically, like let's say your mom works really weird hours, but you can make sure you give it to her on a time where she has a couple days off of work. Because then that way she can process it, think about it, and then come back to you, hopefully. There's been a lot of good things with the coming out letters, is people will give it to them scared to death, but then their parents will write them a letter or an email right back, and asking them questions, so that's good. Something you need to do with that, though, and that's really important, is that you need to make sure you follow up with them. If you send them a letter, or you leave a letter on their door or something like that, something where you know that they checked it. So like taping it to their door, because then you know that they have to pull it down, and then they've at least received it. If you place it somewhere precariously, they may not find it, or they may throw it away, or they may claim that they threw it away on accident. So you want to make sure it's somewhere where they can run into it in a safe environment. Again, there is always the possibility of backlash. And then also maybe including with your coming out letter resources for them to go back on. There is plenty of YouTube videos for them to look at. Basic stuff like that. But yeah, summing it up, I feel letters are great, but then that's another thing is after you write it and you make sure that that's the draft you want, you have to actually give it to them. I've written a couple coming out letters and they have, honestly and sadly, sat in my house here. I have yet to come out to my mom and my sisters, and I really want to, and that's something I was thinking about doing this holiday season. But there was some family stuff happening, and I don't know if it's the best time, and it's kind of a stigma in our society is because we're constantly worrying, is it a good time for them? We're always worried about that. And it starts putting our own mental health into a negative space. So that's another thing is sometimes you need to rip the Band-Aid off and do it. When I was first diagnosed with my brain tumor and I knew it was hard news and I wouldn't be able to get through talking to them, I wrote in a very impersonal email and just carbon copied all of it to everybody and just sent it. And then they all started messaging me at their own time. But yeah, it was kind of the best way and the easiest way to deal. So I think in the end, I might write each one of them a letter. And when I leave, I'm just going to give them that letter and say, please read this when you get home. And then that way, and then also including on the bottom, feel free to talk to me at any time. I'd love to talk to you about this as well. Yeah, and for the most part, I can only hope that your coming out experience is good and that they're understanding. And then at that point, you still have to remind yourself that it's not going to be easy for them because they have perceived you as whatever you were born as. My mom is going to perceive me as her daughter for a long time until she gets used to it. Although she hasn't referred to me as daughter since the top surgery, which is kind of nice. She just says my kids. And for the most part, my two older sisters that are very understanding don't say my sisters. They just, they say my siblings. So I think they've pretty much caught on. And honestly, my twin, we all know my twin is not necessarily the most understanding. She specifically, on the Christmas email that we send out to each other, making sure we have a time that we're showing up at Mom's house, she wrote very gendered language towards girls, but I don't expect her to understand or be friendly. Hey guys, that's it for now. Hopefully you do choose to come out sooner rather than later, because in the end it's your life, it's your decision, but you shouldn't have to live your life and hide and be another person when you go to your family or your friends, whoever you haven't come out to yet.